the 24th, 2025, and straight from the Highlight Caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B, and I, Will Bryce, am your host for the next half hour. Now, as promised, I told you I would take you on a little mental vacation this week, all the way out to Tahoe. Let me tell you, that is as they say in the country, a fur piece from where I'm at in North Carolina. But we'll get more into that. But first, I'll do my small business shout out of the week, and that goes to this one's a little different. This is actually a business from some college kids that are just trying to make their way through college and being kind of a little creative, if you will. Now, I kind of like what they do because they're taking things that are old and calling them vintage. So therefore, I am no longer old. I am in vintage. But nevertheless, it is called Thrift Tripping 90s and Bite Me Vintage. You can find them pretty much on any social media that you can turn on. So that's Thrift Tripping 90s and Bite Me Vintage. And they're pretty much at every vintage show gathering that you can possibly find. But I guarantee you can find them on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, probably YouTube. There's probably some social media that they're on that I don't even know about. But, I digress. That's another subject. But it is THRIFTTRIPPIN 90s, and then Bite Me Vintage, but vintage is VNTGE. But you search them, you'll find them, I promise you, because they're all over social media. All right, let's dive off. Well, actually, we're not going anywhere where there's a beach, so I guess we shouldn't dive off into Tahoe. We will climb our way up that mountain. So this was another Caesars, air quote, free trip. And so, of course, we stayed in Harrah's. We flew on Sun Country Airlines. Now, I want to not necessarily make a plug, but I will kind of highlight Sun Country Airlines. They're kind of like the size of American Airlines, but they have the customer service of your Southwest, if you will. So we really enjoy flying on Suncoast. They do fly, public, so you can book flights on there, but they're kind of limited in where they go. But nevertheless, Suncoast Airlines, I really do enjoy them. I will say, living in North Carolina, that flying to Tahoe was a 5.5-hour plane ride. Now, I am not a big fan of any plane ride over 2.5 hours, but you got to consider basically going from one side of the U.S. to the other side. So I really can't fuss about it, but I'm just not a long flight person. But when we got there, we were already exhausted, but I was exhausted and hungry. And the food in Tahoe area did not disappoint. Now, the reason I say Tahoe area is because, as usual, we rented a car and we scouted the area over the next few days. I will tell you, going from the airport out to where Lake Tahoe is, where the casinos and stuff are, is an absolute amazing scenic drive. You go through mountains that have the tunnels that are built into the mountains. It was just absolutely incredible scenery. And then when you get to actual Lake Tahoe, where you can see the lake and the mountains and the trees, it is just, I never, in my entire life, never really thought of Lake Tahoe as somewhere that I envisioned myself going. If it wasn't so far away, I would have probably already been back again. But it is absolutely breathtaking when it comes to scenery. I'm glad that I did take that trip at least that one time. And I know you're asking yourself, well, would you, if it's so great, why would you not go back? The only thing that slows me from going back anytime soon, I'm not saying that I won't ever go back, but the only thing that slows me from going back is that 5.5 hour trip. Because then once you get there, then you've got a nice little bus ride out to where Lake Tahoe is. But like I said, it was a great trip. So let's get into it. Let's talk about more of what I saw and what I ate. Um, there is an area just outside of Lake Tahoe that they called South Lake Tahoe. There is an area in that little suburb that is called Heavenly Village. And I know that if you're a big time skier or vacationer at Lake Tahoe, you may be laughing at me at some of my different references during this podcast because you're thinking, oh, this he's been once. He doesn't have a clue. All I know is what I experienced. So I may not know all the local lingo, but Heavenly Village was really cool. Ton of shops, ton of restaurants. Just an absolute awesome way to spend the day because the scenery around Heavenly Village is just, you can see mountains all around. It was absolutely incredible. There is a restaurant there called McPee's, MC capital P, and the food was really good, really cool, like tap house vibe, if you will. But they had a pulled pork sandwich that was just off the chain good. I mean, it seems like everybody's, if it's really good now, they're calling it fire. Well, if that's the case, then this pulled pork sandwich was fire because it was absolutely, I've not forgotten about it. But it was really good. And I'm not even a big pulled pork fan, but maybe it was the sauce that they had on it. I don't know. But it was absolutely phenomenal. My wife had the salmon as usual. It had really good seasoning and everything on it, sauce, and she just absolutely loved it. I'm just not a big salmon fan, but that pulled pork hit the spot, so I was happy. That's all I needed to know. There's also, if you're looking for a little bit different type of cuisine in the Heavenly Village area, there's a place called Azul, Azul, Latin Kitchen. A very diverse menu, a very diverse twist on your Latin dishes, and I found it very refreshing and creative in what they came out with on their menu. But it wasn't my favorite food of the whole time, and it wasn't that their food was bad because their food was really good. It just wasn't my type of cuisine that I normally, and maybe it was just their twist on it. But it was really good. I had their version of fajitas, and they were really great. They were tender. Would I go back? Sure. I mean, maybe try something else on the menu. My wife absolutely loved what she had, and it was a shrimp dish with some kind of really spicy, peppery, creamy sauce on, and she absolutely loved it. So, like I said, their food's really good. It just wasn't my typical go-to, if you will. There was also, I remember that morning we had gotten there, and I was starving. Shocker, right? But there was a place called a Social House, or Social House Deli, and they had these bagel breakfast sandwiches, and they were really big. I mean, they were really good, and absolutely just devoured that thing. But if you're looking for a good breakfast and you're not looking for the typical bacon, eggs, etc. Game show, then that Social House Deli, they really do a great breakfast sandwich on that massive bagel. It takes two hands. We did ride out to a little city. It really wasn't much there to explore, but it was called Carson City. And they had a place called Heidi's. Now, it's spelled Hiedis. Uh, and we went there for breakfast. There really wasn't anything to hold us in town the rest of the day. So we drove out, checking it out, and we was like, okay, we were actually on our way to check out Reno, and I'll get to that next. But we stopped for breakfast at this place, and this Heidi's, and they had these blueberry pancakes. Oh, off the these things were just, they were really good, fluffy. They had this massive fresh blueberry compote on top and tons of whipped cream. I mean, it was like dessert and breakfast all at once. Yes, yours truly was in heaven. Um, she had her usual eggs Benedict, and she said they were very good. I thought the plate presentation on both dishes was absolutely amazing, especially for a breakfast place. But they absolutely did an amazing job on their plate presentation. Now, there, when I mentioned to you we were on our way to Reno and we made a quick dash through Carson City, Reno, as they tout themselves to be the biggest little city in the world, well, I, I guess so. And maybe this falls in line with some other places I've been. At one time, back in time, maybe if you had a time machine and go back in time and check out Reno back in the day, back when it was really, the place to be, so to speak. It was probably really cool. Um, it actually, Reno to me looks like what Vegas would look like if the apocalypse happened, you know, because it just had that. We used to be great, but now we're not. And they didn't need a sign for it because the signs were there everywhere. So we hung out in Reno for, I'm going to say, maybe an hour or two, and then we bolted. We're just like, okay, we're done with this. So there wasn't another little town that, surprisingly, at the top of a mountain, and it was a pretty good little drive out there, but it was called Virginia City. Now, this place, to be a small town literally off the beaten path, had a ton to offer. Um, they had, as you were headed up the mountain, at the base of the mountain, there was a little store called, and you can't miss it. It's like middle of nowhere. There's nothing but rocks and dirt, and there sits this chocolate factory, just like out of nowhere. And went inside. They make their own fudge. They make a lot of different things, and it was really good. They had a really great selection. They ship all over the United States, but it was actually called the Chocolate Nugget Candy Factory. You can actually look them up online. Um, so that was really cool. And then we went on up the mountain into Virginia City. Tons of shops and boutiques and quite a few restaurants to be a small, forgotten about town that started back in the silver mining, if memory serves me correctly. But there was like a Christmas store, and it was actually pretty decent size, and they had a lot. If you love to collect Christmas stuff, that is your store. I guarantee it. Um, but definitely you would want to check that store out. Even if you're not a big Christmas fan, I think it'd be worth checking out. There's also, and why this seems to keep popping up with me, is there was also another haunted hotel. Now, this one claimed to be one of the most haunted, that supposedly more haunted than the last one I saw. I'm like, okay, I'll be careful. Um, but it was called the Washoe Club, Washoe. Look it up. The Washoe Club is the oldest haunted hotel in Virginia City. I think it was also the only hotel in Virginia City. But, I'm not one to, that's their bragging rights. Let them have it. Um, it was, I don't know if it was haunted, but I will say it was creepy. It did, if you're looking for a creepy factor, it definitely, it scores high on the meter. Trust me. I felt like like I had spiders crawling on me when I walked out of there. I was just like, okay, that just left a creep factor there. It was like, it was cool to see it. It was also cool to leave. But that's their claim to fame, so be it. There was a candy store there. You guys know I like candy. But they had, the reason I mentioned this store is because if you like saltwater taffy, this store had, and I can't make this up, but they had a bazillion, with a B, they had a bazillion different flavors. Now, that's not literal, of course, but I don't think there is a flavor of saltwater taffy that they did not have. I mean, it was just unreal. Did I get my share? Yes, I did. I left with a bag in each hand because, you have to try them all. You can't leave. Of course, there was some flavors I knew that weren't my favorite, so I left those aside so that other flavors could join the ride and you know become famous for riding along with me. Hey, don't judge me. I like my saltwater taffy. What can I say? Um, but there is a restaurant there that you guys know that I always talk about when I talk about restaurants. I talk about the creativity and your menu and your whole vibe of your restaurant, whatever creativity all the way throughout. This place, and I urge you to look it up, but this place was called the Palace Restaurant and Saloon. Now, they had a burger on their menu that was called the garbage truck. you know, I'm sorry. That had my name written all over it. They might as well have had their menus printed with my name out to the side. Like they had reserved that they had uh, designed that and reserved it strictly for me. I don't remember exactly what all was on it. I do remember that basically the thing was like a foot tall. Uh, it took some effort and some uh, constructive, you know, constructive thinking to figure out a way to tackle that monster. Sorry about that little butcher shop on the words there. Like y'all already know that I have a butcher shop for words. And if anybody's going to butcher some words, it's going to be yours truly. But nevertheless, it did take some constructive thinking to disassemble that burger in a way that I didn't want to mess with the integrity of the burger, if that's possible. But I did want to enjoy every flavor that was in that burger. So it took some constructive, you know, doing to get that whole flavor montage, if you will, in my taste buds all at once. I, and the reason I'm struggling with this because I'm struggling as much to talk about it as I did was struggling with eating it. I kid you not. I tell you what, I'll post a picture tomorrow of this burger on our social media so that you can see, and you tell me how you would have bitten into this burger and gotten all of the flavors and all of the layers at one time. You let me know because I will probably run into that situation again. Okay, so that was really good. They had, of course, you can't have a monster crazy burger without having something to wash it down with. And they had a Bloody Mary, and it was almost like a meal on top of the Bloody Mary. So that also took a little bit of constructive thinking to get that down. But nevertheless, I succeeded and I enjoyed every single morsel of it. The meal that I'm going to tell you about next, I hope you write it down. If you're driving, I understand. Just save the episode and listen to it again. But the meal I'm about to tell you about next, you definitely, if you are anywhere near Lake Tahoe, you've got to go check this out. I don't care if you don't like casinos. I don't care. Go into Harrah's and go to the 18th floor. And there is a restaurant called Friday's Station. I kind of felt like the name was a little downplay on exactly because it's a white tablecloth restaurant. It is very high end and it is absolutely phenomenal. wait till you hear about the food that they have. But like I said, a Friday station, that makes me think of video games and a pizza. And the average age of the patron is going to be somewhere between 12 and 21. I don't know, but it's not what I think of when a white tablecloth restaurant. They had filet mignon, which I had, and they had these blackened island shrimp and to go with the filet, and absolutely phenomenal. The wife had the prime rib, uh, very nice, generous cut, um, just absolutely cooked to perfection. Um, it was just a really enjoyable meal. Um, they didn't necessarily, if would I say it's a wow experience? I would not, because there were some components that weren't there. However, I will say this: they absolutely wowed me with a dessert, and I'll post a picture of this along with the hamburger, because just so you can see what I'm talking about. If you've ever had baked Alaska, then you know where I'm going. Baked Alaska is absolutely one of my favorite desserts. One of many. But I digress. This was the restaurant's twist on Baked Alaska, and it's called Baked Tahoe. Haha. But their presentation with this thing is where they take it up another notch. I mean, they went up a whole. They took all the notches. Okay, I mean, this thing, like I said, if the new word is fire, this thing was fire. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. They call it a. Now, here's where you're going to judge me, and it's okay. They call it a dessert you can share. I disagree. I could have easily eaten that by myself. The average person, maybe not. But me, I could have easily tackled that thing by myself. Would I have been miserable afterwards? More than likely, but it would have been worth it. And when you see the picture I'm going to post tomorrow, you will understand why. So, that was where they really wowed me. So let me give you an overall picture of a trip to Lake Tahoe. It is absolutely one of those trips that you should take at least once in your lifetime. The scenery alone around Lake Tahoe will make it worthwhile. If you don't do anything else or go anywhere else, but just sit in a chair and look at the scenery on Lake Tahoe, you will have done yourself a favor. But do not discount the smaller towns around Lake Tahoe, the different scenic drives around Lake Tahoe. Definitely check out the different restaurants, locally owned restaurants around Lake Tahoe. You will have done yourself a favor. And if you live somewhere around Texas or mid US, then you're not going to have that monster flight like we did all the way from North Carolina. If you're from North Carolina, then buckle up, Buttercup, and pack some snacks, because you're going to need them. Just letting you know in advance that I'm speaking from experience. Uh, but that is my take on Lake Tahoe. Um, I would like to give one final plug out to Culinary Highway. I did actually upload the very first episode of Culinary Highway earlier today, and it will launch tomorrow. But normally episodes will come out on Friday, but this was such a special episode, I went ahead and set it for to launch up or upload, be published, whatever the word, whatever the lingo they want to use, but to publish to Monday the 24th. But I hope that you will take the time and go check out Culinary Highway. This is something that I have poured a lot of work into. I had no idea that video editing took so much time. But you know what? It was a learning process, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But definitely go check out Culinary Highway. It's It's on our YouTube channel at Culinary Highway, or it'll be blasted on our social media from Monday through the remaining days that I exist. But do go check that out. Once again, I do appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Don't forget to caffeinate and conquer. And until I talk to you next Monday, have a great day. Bye bye.